Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining another edition of Mojo Rising, How to Make Cancer Suck Less. And throughout our last 25 episodes, we have talked about a number of different topics that are really important for people who have cancer, especially who are newly diagnosed. This topic is perhaps for someone who is in the middle of their treatment or even towards the end of their treatment, which is a time where most people think you would have your cheerleading costume on and you would be yelling from the rafters, so excited to be done with cancer. And yet, in my journey, that was when I had the hardest time emotionally. So I want this episode to be dedicated for the folks who are beginning to plan for a post-cancer life, because that's where it gets really good. But that transition is really hard. So I've invited another, not just cancer survivor, but truly cancer thriver to join me for this episode. This is a woman who I met and immediately fell in love with. She's a soul sister like few on this planet are. She's someone who, like me, when was told things were bad, she decided she wanted to change the world and figure out how to make it better for people who follow in her wake. So I couldn't be more thrilled to be invited to have invited Rachel to this call. So Rachel, without further ado, would you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself for our audience?
Hey there, I am Rachel Minion. I am a marketing rock star and a cancer warrior. So one of the things that is exciting about us is we've not only taken this tragedy, but we've been able to then go help and impact over 600 people across the US, even as far as Ireland. And believe it or not, be able to impact their journey in the midst of it. So anyone who's a cancer warrior who's going through chemotherapy treatments, that's where we've been most exciting to be able to impact that journey.
So Rachel, tell me a little bit about, okay, so I think you told three things that I just want to extrapolate for our listeners. The first is you are a marketing expert. And so when I look at you, I see amazing instruments behind you. And of course, you know, I'm a music lover. So talk to me a little bit about your professional experience, because I think this is really relevant for our conversation.
So I am a marketer. I'm a marketer by heart. I love branding. There is nothing better than branding in this world. It is those words that we use to lift us up. It's those jingles. It is that phrase that just gets you out of bed to go get your morning coffee. So I created Rockstar and Moon. This is a brand. All the guitars you see behind me, that's art because it's part of the brand. We don't have any musical ability. We have marketing ability.
Oh, I love it. Oh, so Rockstar and Moon, I love that you are an official marketer and a brander. So we've brought to today someone who really understands the strategy of what we're going to talk about, but not it. So let's go into the second part, which is cancer warrior. So Rachel, can you share a little bit about your cancer experience?
So I found out that I'm one in a million. I am an appendix cancer survivor, but I don't like to use the word survivor. I like to use the word warrior because survivor to me is discriminatory. We've talked about how those who didn't make it, they still have a battle that should be honored. So we are all cancer warriors wherever you are in your battle because you have had the fight of your life.
Yeah, God knows that's the truth. Okay, now the third thing, as you've said, you've not only shared joy nationally, but internationally. So let's talk a little bit about what you was mentioning or what you were thinking of when you mentioned that you had sent things even to Ireland. So what is that all about?
We do chemo care kits. And one of the things that I found in my cancer experience is the minute that I had a diagnosis, no one around me knew what to do. What do you say to the girl who just got diagnosed with cancer? Do I burden her with my problems on, oh, my husband didn't mow the lawn or he forgot to pick up something from the grocery store? No. So rather than having that support around, I felt isolated. So we created this nonprofit so that it's an actionable step that anyone can do for someone in their network, in their world. If is their family member, it could be their friend, where we provide chemo care kits for free to anyone who's undergoing chemotherapy treatments.
And what do you put in the chemo care kits?
The first thing that we have some really great in-kind donations from LMNT. LMNT is these incredible electrolytes that have magnesium and potassium and salt. It kept me going through a lot of my health battles. We also have the ginger people who donated ginger chews because with the nausea, there is no way to get through life without that. We also include a port pillow, which is made by my aunt. And believe it or not, this port pillow comes across on the seatbelt to protect your port. So as you have that chemo port in your chest and you're trying to get to and from treatments, you're trying to get wherever you need to go, that's what we have available. We also have a lot of other goodies that are in there. Sometimes it's back scratchers, sometimes it's socks, sometimes it's mints and different types of toothpastes and things that we can do to actually help you feel better.
So what I just heard over and over is what these are a way to reduce suffering. And I love that you're reducing suffering, thinking about their side effects, thinking about how you actually build up their body with the electrolytes. And I also use those because for me, I was afraid of a port. So I did vein infusions. And when I did the electrolytes, my veins were popping. So I would have no problem. So for me, it's like whenever you're giving blood or anything like that, take one of those things. And it's amazing to see the impulse, the reaction. And then even the port pillow, like the fact that you've custom designed and had a family member make this so that people are not uncomfortable in those moments, which that's totally preventable. What a really cool and thoughtful gift. So I just love what you're doing. And chemo care kits, guys, look it up online. Certainly, please support these. And if you have something that could go into these chemo care kits that you'd be willing to share, please, 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 please reach out. I know Rachel would love to hear from you. So,
Absolutely.
okay, Rachel, so let's talk through your experience being a warrior. What were the moments where it was really the most struggle, like the most difficult for you?
I think the minute that you hear that diagnosis, that was the first part, right? Because you hear the word cancer and they're talking about you. It doesn't make sense. Immediately, your defenses go up. It's like somebody just said your hair is red and you know that it's not. And there's no way that that could be the case. So that was moment one. Moment two was I knew I could pull myself together through this fight. I didn't have a question there. But it was after the doctor's appointment stopped and they said, okay, no evidence of disease. I've spent the last how many months going through this, and the only thing I identified with is I have cancer. And then post-cancer happened, and it was like, hold on, wait a minute. Who am I now? Because the minute you hear that C word, everything else changes. So you're not going to go back to the life that you had before. You're not going to go to feel the same way that you did about things. The things that you really upset before, they don't matter as much right now. But so many other things matter, making sure you have the right nutrition, etc. How do you make this work? And so it was that identity post-cancer that I really struggled with for a while. And how do I introduce myself? Whereas I lost that. I lost those words to do such a thing in public.
Rachel, I'm laughing because I felt the exact same. I mean, I had probably 3 moments in my journey. The first is exactly the diagnosis. And my response when he said, we found a tumor, was to say, isn't colon cancer a 7-year-old man's disease? Like, I don't think this is possible. So like immediately I was like, no, I don't associate with this. So yes, totally hear you. The second was when I realized my chemo wasn't working and I knew I had to really double down and figure out a strategy. So that was a moment of a little bit of chaos, but both of those paled in comparison to that third moment, which is, and for me, I laugh because I was driving to Nashville to go see 3 concerts the weekend, and I had a 10 a.m. PET scan on Monday morning. So I was driving back after my concert Sunday night to go to this PET scan. So that's how ingrained to this idea of living in joy I was, because I wasn't going to spend that weekend worried. I was going to spend that weekend having fun. But my drive to and from Nashville, I was a complete wreck. I didn't know how to introduce myself. I didn't know how to define myself. I didn't know, like, I had fully embraced Cancer Girl, and I had to in order to survive and to really build this strategy and put all my effort there. And you're right. People didn't talk to me about the weather or their kids' problems or traffic issues. No, I was all cancer all the time and really, really focused. So then when I wasn't Cancer Girl anymore, I didn't know who I was, because you're right. I wasn't the hardworking, smart person. I wasn't this, like all the ways I would have defined myself before went out the window. And for me, it started with I actually had a moment of crisis where I wrote down, what are the rules in which I live my life? So if I can't define myself, the what I do, like what I am, I'm going to define how I behave. Again, I'm an industrial psychologist, so that's the way my brain works. And so I went through and like built 10 rules for living. that was my approach. And that was all I could do in those moments of panic to come up with something I could grasp on. But like, talk to me a little bit about your experience.
Well, I started with the relationship. I'm John's wife, but that, while it fits, that isn't who I am. Then I was discussing, oh, I'm running marketing for division of Ticketmaster. Nope, that doesn't fit also, right? These things, they're coats that we wear, but they just feel like fat man in a little jacket, right? Like it doesn't, no matter how much we try to squeeze in, it doesn't fit the same way as it previously would have. So I started working on what words could I put around myself that would make us more exciting for me, be able to get me in public, be able to introduce myself, and be able to reintroduce myself to friends, because I'm no longer the one that's sick that they have to worry about. So I started working, my first word was warrior, because I went through the battle, I'm there, and that's who I am. The second word that really rang true for me, all of this was so much chaos. There was chaos everywhere, every single step of this journey. And while I love to say it was controlled chaos, we know that it's not.
Yeah.
So I went with the word force. I am a force. All these things came at me. I handled it. I got through it. Whatever it is, I know I can handle it.
Yeah. Warrior and force, those are strength and power words. So you wanted to come out of this diagnosis making sure we knew who was boss. I love that.
That's it. Well, what are our other options?
I mean, that's true. We're not sheep,
I'm
clearly.
not a victim.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay, so force and warrior. Okay, so what changed as a result when you define those words? What did you change as a result of that? Or how did you implement this?
I think when you pick words that are really strong and resonate, it changes your posture.
Yeah.
It changes what you think in the morning. When you wake up in the morning and you're dragging ass and you're not in the mood, and today is not your day, I am a force. You can't say that and be like, oh, I hate Fridays.
Yeah.
No, it changes the entire energy around you, and embracing a word that can motivate you and move you and brings its own life to the table, right?
Yeah. So, okay, so think about these words. How, like, is there anything from a like, besides what we just talked about? Like, is there anything, like, did you tell your friends or family? Did you say, like, this is my definition? So, what did you do to operationalize this?
I started by taking a trick that I learned in weight loss. I wrote force and warrior on my mirror in soap. So every morning, that's the first thing that I saw. And every night before I went to bed, that's the last thing that I saw. I took those words and I put them on my phone. I put them on my monitor. I just had little sticky notes to keep that top of mind. And once I was ready and having these conversations, right? Because it's weird. Once you've gone through this cancer thing and then you're fine, there's no evidence of disease, you cough around your friends, you cough around your family, and they have the same thought that you did. Is this cancer? Is it coming back? Are you dying? No. So you reintroduce yourself gradually and say, look, I'm a force. I am fine. This is how it's going. I am not worried about these things. In fact, I just last week had my 10-year post-cancer colonoscopy. And
Wow.
oh, yeah. And all the old feelings came back, right? Now I got to do the prep. I'm like, it doesn't go well. Prep is very different when you are in the midst of cancer than when you are post-cancer and you're 10 years past. Two different preps. I didn't know that before. And I knew how terrible I did with the first round of prep. So, and I've had, I think, 8 or 9 colonoscopies. So this is my 10-year. Let's make this happen. We got a hotel room, we checked in. I am freaking out. And then I go and I down the first dose and I'm okay. I'm not dying. This is the ultimate change, right? So, what happened in almost a few hour period as I went back to I identify, I am cancer, I am only cancer, this is who I am diseased, I am sick, to no, I am a force, I can handle this and I will get through this. And they're going to find absolutely nothing.
So so much of what you just shared, I mean, without knowing you during the time, I did exactly the same thing. For me, my word was fearless because
Oh,
I was very focused on not being, of living in joy and not in fear. And so everything, every decision, and when I'm weighing something, I'm like, you are fearless. So what would someone who is fearless choose? And so as I use that as my definition, that to me is for 2024, every decision I make is going to be made with the mindset of being fearless because that's how I want to be perceived in this world. And that's who I really am. Like, what's gonna make you afraid if stage 4 cancer didn't? So, like, let's be real. So, I love that you did that. I too have put it everywhere so that I'm constantly reminded. I even hand stamped a bracelet that said fearless, so I would know you are fearless. Like in those moments. And let's be real. When I was going for my PET scan, oh my gosh, oh Rachel, we were meant to be friends. I love that so much. Hold on. You guys couldn't just see what she showed me. So let me stop so she can speak so the camera will go to her.
so when I realized I needed that reminder, I needed a constant reminder. I couldn't do life without it. I actually tattooed warrior on my wrist. So when I'm going through things, it is right there. And on that same arm, believe it or not, I have tattooed, what if I can?
Talk to me about that tattoo. That's awesome.
Well, there are so many times when the battle just seems too much. And the only words you want to say are, I can't, I just can't do this anymore. I just can't handle anymore. But what if I can? And I have that on my arm as a permanent reminder. I know that there will always be health things that I need to go through and check. But if it's right here in front of me, I just look down and it changes the narrative. It changes how I show up to that day, how I show up to that moment.
Love it. Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. And I love those words, warrior and fierce and force. Sorry, force. Fierce is the adjective of force, so I'll take it. I was gonna say, but I love those as just strong, such strong power words. So let me share a little bit about kind of similar to you. I had the same where I didn't know who I was and I didn't know the words to define myself or the adjectives. And for me, I'd had a huge physical change. I've lost 130, 140 pounds. So who I was in my head, what I saw in the mirror was not reflected in the pictures I saw. So I didn't even know physically how to recognize myself, let alone emotionally. Like I just became this badass who told doctors that I knew more than they did. And I did. How the hell did this happen? And I don't know health. And like, do I feel confident? Like, so it really was that. So I went down and started to think about who am I? Like, how would I define myself? And so, I'll share with you, I came up with kind of my 10 guidelines for how I will live my post-cancer life. Because I think it's defining how I'm going to choose my actions and how I'm going to choose my behavior. So the first one is probably no surprise to anyone. It's my mantra, maximize joy. So when in doubt, I'm going to seek joy. And Rachel, while you haven't specifically said that, I'm pretty sure that's high on your list of things that you like to do as well.
You know, it's funny. I don't know if I understand the word joy. And there's a reason behind this. Joy is my grandmother.
Oh, interesting. I love it. I
So
love
I
it.
pick different words around that because, when if I want to envision joy, that would be my grandmother.
Yeah.
I don't things my grandmother did, although at 4 o'clock every day she did make a party. So that was awesome.
Yes. For me, joy is really the expression of, I mean, it's a mix of kindness, of happiness, of fulfillment, of success. It is truly the feeling of lightness. That's how I would define it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so my
And one of the things that's interesting to me is also when you think about what that is, it's character traits that you also want to embody that bring that together. So it isn't just joy, it may be curiosity. Because I
yeah.
know curious is one of those things that all of a sudden came up and bubbled up to the surface for you.
So I was going to say, oh, that comes a little bit deeper. So my second one is minimizing risk. And that does feed into curiosity. And so this goes back to when I was a child and I would want to do something like break curfew and go see something like Rocky Horror Picture Show. My father would say to me, "What's the worst thing that could happen?" And I would think real hard and be like, "All right, maybe I'd run out of gas." And he'd be like, "Well, go fill up your tank on the way there." So that way the worst thing that happened couldn't happen. So for me, you can't pursue joy without understanding the risks of joy. And if I want to minimize risk, to me, this is a part of my being a data G strategy of I'm going to minimize risk by feeding my body the right things, strengthening my immune system, giving myself every opportunity to get rest at night, things like managing my stress. So that's that minimizing risk is all about choosing health in a weird way, but also not making dumb decisions. So,
Yeah. And I think for me, the biggest thing that I have learned through all of this that I decided was my path is to live loud and be authentic.
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because I am 4'11". You would never know it by this personality, but I'm going to live out loud. I had had my whole battle and all of those pieces where I was holding myself together. I was holding myself inside. I became a hermit for a hot minute, right?
Yeah.
And it was time to go have those experiences again.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. My next one is be a good person.
Ooh.
And this was, in a way, part of my health strategy. And again, I was always, I think, a pretty good person. But for me, it was if I choose to live my life in a way that I am proud of my behavior every moment, I have no shame and I have no guilt, which allows me to live in a different health category. So being a good person to me is a health strategy. Like I'm going to be a good person, so I never have to challenge. If someone says you did this, I'm like, no, I actually live true to my word. I do, like this is who I am. So that authenticity is exactly right there.
And for me, the next piece that I decided I had to have is to be able to make an impact, a tangible impact that I could see, something I could do, and just make something from nothing.
My fourth one, which you just queued up perfectly without ever seeing this list before, is be worth knowing. That's exactly right. Because that's exactly I want for people to when they walk away from an interaction with me to say, I learned something, or I'm smarter, or I had more fun, or that was joy, or I'm worthy of knowing because I've got great things to add this world and to add to your life. So I love that you just said exactly what I was thinking. Yes.
We're on the same page. I get it. You introduced me, soul sister. We're there.
100%. So the next one for me is a know your worth. And this goes into the confidence because I think for both of us to choose to do what we've done in our journeys, we had to know and trust ourselves and know and trust our decisions and know and trust our team. But knowing that you're worthy of trust is such a gift that I got through the cancer experience?
I think on my end, through all of the different medical battles that I've had, it's really weird being a woman and going to seek medical help, even from women. What we've seen on just through my adventure is I'm not necessarily believed. One doctor told me that I need to be on antidepressants and anti-anxieties to see them rather than looking at the data. And I'm not crazy. I see these things. I know this. Like, I can't try any harder to just show you just pieces of the data. So getting that right care team and trusting myself enough that I am in the wrong place and that I could find the right place was huge.
Okay, so you just set up the next one perfectly as well, because the next one is do no harm, take no shit. And what you just said is exactly that. To understand when someone says to you, like when my doctor said, I'm the expert, and I said, that's cool, but these 6 industrialized countries use this data point, so I use it. So disprove my hypothesis. I was totally polite. I was kind. I was respectful, but hell no, I'm not taking your shit. And if you don't want to believe me, prove it to me, truly. Oh, I love it.
I don't think I was kind.
Oh, strong, fearless, fierce, you know?
When your blood pressure doesn't register
Yeah.
and they're looking at you and telling you to take, meds for anxiety, it's just like it fits. So my niceness went out the window at that moment.
Yeah. Fair game. Fair game. Okay, the next one I had on my list. So those were the top five. So maximize joy, minimize risk, be a good person, be worth knowing, know your worth, do no harm, take no shit. Now, number six is live in gratitude. And so, in a post cancer world, when so much had changed, my partner of 10 years and I had broken up. I didn't know how to cook anymore because the way I cooked before was using butter and oil and all the things and processed foods. I didn't know how to work anymore. Like all of these things were changed. So I had to reground into what I'm grateful for. And I bought something that's in my bedroom that says begin each day with a grateful heart. And so when I wake up first thing in the morning, that's the first thing I see, and I start to count my blessings. So before I even register the day, I'm already thinking of the good things. So that gratitude, I didn't understand that gratitude is the root of almost all good in the world. But once I really found gratitude, it changed my experience.
One of the things that I learned through all of these adventures is how not just having gratitude, but expressing it to others is really impactful when you say, even to a team member, I'm just so grateful for you. I appreciate you. They feel heard, they feel seen, and it changes every dynamic.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, this next one, this to me is believe. And believe can be religious, it can be spiritual, it can be in yourself. But the idea is to define what you believe and to fully believe in it. So I don't care if it's Allah or Yahweh or God or Jesus or who you pray to or who you care about, or if it's the God of the under. I don't care what is your higher power. And if your higher power is yourself, okay. But whatever it is, go into it, define what you believe, and really invest in that.
Or even what you believe in for your issues. So if you have a political issue, go do something about it, go take action,
Yeah,
go not only embrace it, but create that movement around you.
100%. 100%. Okay, the next one for me was knowledge is power. And that one person once asked me, would you rather be at peace or would you rather have knowledge? And I said at the time, I'd rather have peace. And after a cancer diagnosis, I would rather have knowledge. Because to me, when I have knowledge, I can choose how to find peace. But if you have peace without knowledge, you have no idea when your peace is going to be disrupted. So to me, I really believe where people might be like, oh, I don't want to go to colonoscopy because it's hard and I don't need the data and I'm fine and all this. No, no, no. I'm going to get blood tests and colonoscopies and mammograms and thermography. And if there's an opportunity to learn about myself, I'm going to take it, you know?
It's funny. I literally just had my mammogram this week. We might as well get all the screenings done. And no matter what it is, and even the scheduler looked it up and she said, wow, should we throw a blood panel in? Yes, I will take that too.
Yes. That's exactly right. Any data I can get, I'm going to take it because knowledge is power. And I really want to encourage myself to always never look at that as something that could be avoided or I should stick my head under the sand and pretend it's not happening. Bring it to me. I can take it. Let's figure it out, you know?
And if you have those data points, then you can actually do something about it. If you don't have the data and you haven't captured what's going on with you or around you or any of those things, when you go to explain it, then it feels like it's more out of emotion than, okay, on this date it was this, on this date it was this, and here's the triggers that happened. It's just a very different way to set up the conversations.
For sure. For sure. That's exactly right. At least you know the situation that you're actually working in. So, okay. And number 10 on this list is energy is everything and everything is energy. And this was a really big one for me because I used to waste a lot of time thinking of caring about what other people think and caring about like allowing anxiety and worry to dictate my behavior. So this embracing of energy is everything, and how I use my energy is the only thing I can control in this world, was really paramount to my figuring out my post-cancer life, because I knew I wanted to be strategic. And if I'm investing time in something, it's because it's meaningful. And so I really used my NED, or no evidence of disease, as a blank slate to then think about, how do I recreate my life? Well, it's really important for me to exercise, so I'm going to exercise every day. It's really important for me to take supplements, so I'm going to take supplements every day. So I use this framework to really help me then redefine exactly where I'm going to invest my energy. So let me just go through. Rachel, any comments on energy is everything? And then I'm just going to go through the 10 one more time for our listeners.
It's amazing to me because there's a piece of that you didn't include when you're doing your description. Let's be really clear. Food is energy as well. And that is also a basis for where all these things come from. And how do we fix our mood? How do we fix how we feel all day long? And that is such a huge moment of energy that brings us not only health, but that health enables everything else that we do.
There was a doctor, I was just reading her book, Dr. Casey Means, and if you haven't read Good Energy, it's one of my favorite books of all time. But one of the things that she talked about in her books and her podcasts and et cetera, was that basically the food we eat is the ink that is our 3D printer for our cellular functioning for forever. So what we eat is how our cells decide how to recreate and procreate and solve and multiply and all those things. And if we eat crappy food, we have crappy cell division. And if we eat good food, we have better cell division and better mitochondria and all the things. And when I read that, it kind of hit me how important what you just said really is, and that everything we eat is a component to our future health. That hit me.
And our current health.
100%.
There are moments where you're really down and you want to binge eat everything horrible. You've had a horrible day, you had a breakup, you had your period's coming, whatever it is. And in normal worlds, we've been taught, okay, let's go ahead and feed our body what it needs. But we think we need chocolate cake, or we think we need ice cream, or we think we need these things that are that temporary high that it creates. But then none of us notice until afterwards that you get that insane low afterwards versus, okay, let me just go make a chicken sandwich and that'll fix this.
Oh, those lessons are so hard to learn. And once you do, and you realize that all the cravings are actually sugar and all this is that, like, it was nuts to me to figure out, like, how do I actually feed my body, and how the decisions I thought were healthy before are actually just, I mean, even when I was eating the Whole Foods creamer, I'm like, and then I looked at it, I'm like, this isn't organic. It's not this, it's not this, it's not this. Like, even though I bought it at a good place, it still wasn't actually representative of what the nutrition I was looking for in my diet.
And the craziest part of all of this is our doctors have only had one nutrition course out of all the years they were in school, if that. Maybe it was a few hours. It isn't like they're going to continuing education for this. So it isn't as if they're paying attention to the nutrition as the cause of this versus, let me give you this pill.
Okay, so let me get on my soapbox for just a minute about this, because I feel very passionate about this. So the moment that unlocked this knowledge to me was when I realized, when I started to study the Flexner Report. So for any of our listeners that are not aware, let me just give you a quick history lesson. In 1909, the Rockefellers paid a gentleman by the name of Mr. Flexner, who was a high school principal, to go out and study medical school curriculum across the US. This gentleman immediately refused and said, I'm not qualified. I don't know anything about medical school. And they said, no, the Rockefeller Foundation, you can do this. You've got the power. And so this gentleman went out and studied medical school curriculum from coast to coast. And there were a couple really cool things that he came back with. And the first is, he came back and said, listen, we need some criteria for every medical school to have, some standards. Totally agree with that. The second he said is, you've got to have a 4-year degree. Totally makes sense. You got to understand how to work lab equipment. Totally makes sense. But then it got to some points where the Flexner Report did some bad stuff. It actually closed over 50% of the African-American medical schools in the US. But the other thing that nobody understood at the time is it changed medical school curriculum from being focused on core health to being focused on allopathic medicine. And allopathic medicine, for those of you that don't know that word, is when you treat symptoms, not work to never have symptoms to begin with. So that's different. So when you go to the doctor, they'll then counsel you if you're at risk for diabetes. But they don't tell you from the very beginning, listen, if you just control your blood sugar from the time you're a child, you'll never have a diabetes risk. So it's that difference of actually treating the disease versus solving the core health issue that creates disease to begin with. So when I realized that and started to study medical school curriculum, and again, this also was tipped off. I had a doctor friend who was in Turkey who told me everything I was doing was paid for as part of that medical system in Turkey. And I was like, I'm spending $100,000 and $1 million, all these things. What? And then when I went back and studied our curriculum versus other curriculums, I realized that the only thing our medical school teaches is pharmacology. So MOJO Health believes there are 6 toolboxes to heal. You have pharmacology, which could be surgery, it could be chemo, it could be radiation, etc. You have vitamins and supplements. You have nutrition. You have lifestyle. You have environment, and you have healers. Of that, your doctor in medical school was taught 1, pharmaceuticals. They were not taught nutrition. They know nothing about vitamins or supplements. They know nothing about how EMS might impact your health. They know nothing about what a chiropractor, an acupuncture, reflexologist does to improve health outcomes. That is not part of their curriculum. So we go to these doctors expecting them to be almighty health experts, but we need to understand they are masters of one domain, and that is pharmacology. So sorry, Rachel, I didn't mean to go off on that long tangent, but it's really important for our listeners to understand there is a historical reason why it's so important to have more than one team member in your cancer healing journey.
I think the biggest part of that is having that person act as a quarterback for everything else and having them understand that there are multiple ways to get treatment.
I went in and I ended up having 11 doctors and healers. And when I explained this to my oncologist, he was like, you don't need all that, Julie. We're going to take care of this. So in my mind, and again, I'm a pretty rational data person. I was like, okay, so I've done the data and I understand that 8% of cancer diagnoses are due to genetics. I did my genetic testing and my cancer was not due to genetics. So if it's not due to genetics, what is it due to? And so I asked my doctor that, and he's like, I don't know, it's random. You never know. You're never going to find this out. Well, that's not true. So I started to do research of why are we having more gastric cancers in under 50? Because it is the leading health cause, death reasons, I should say, from health reasons for people under 50. So why in the hell is this happening? And I looked on cancer.gov and it was quite clear. The things we eat, the things we drink, the activities we do, the stress we surround ourselves with, the toxins in our environment. Cancer.gov had it all listed very clearly why we have colon cancer happening under 50. Yet my doctor told me, despite the fact that my cancer was caused by my choices, I did not need to amend my choices to heal. That doesn't make sense to me.
No, my diagnosis was at 34.
Yeah.
How in the world did I get appendix cancer? It makes no sense until all of a sudden it does.
Until all of a sudden you see the light. And this is the scariest part. So for the warriors that are listening to this call that are about to be declared no evidence of disease, I want to caution you to think about the epigenetic factors that created a body that was hospitable to cancer, and to really address and reflect those as part of your healing journey, as part of your go forward strategy. So is it cleaning up what you drink? Is it cleaning up what you eat? Is it reducing your stress? Is it addressing your trauma? Whatever it is, make sure you're giving yourself every advantage in this post-cancer world.
And one of the things that I did since our last conversation, I created a playbook on how to help identify your self-profile. What do you want that to be? And I have that available for free on the website. You can absolutely get that at rachelminion.com. And hopefully that will help to put some of the words around our post-cancer adventure.
Okay, Rachel, tell me more. When you say you've got a I need more on this. So how did you create it? And how would someone go about this? Tell me more.
So I'm a marketer. That's what we do. Words are the most powerful thing that we can surround ourselves by. That's 100% of what we need to lift ourselves up. And when we're trying to figure out who we are and how we identify, and is it by a job title? Is it by a spouse? No, that isn't who you are anymore. You have come through this battle. You have rocked this. Now let's go define a new you. So I put together character traits that we'll start there. Circle the things that really make sense to you. What resonates? How does that feel? How does it make you feel? How would you show up every day if you were that? Then I really believe in picking the next one is there's identity characteristics. So those characteristics, what could it be? Is it an advocate? Are you a fighter? Are you an explorer? Are you a pioneer? Maybe you found that you're just a boss. These are the words that we pull. Circle them. That's all available here. And then we pull that all together and we narrow it down and then really try to help you put together, how do you show up as that? Think about that. If I'm going to show up as a boss today, that is going to be very different than as I would an explorer. It would be really different than if I'm showing up as an advocate. It would be really different if I show up as a rebel. And what are those right words that we can put around you? And this is the start to helping to wake up in the morning and have those right words to power your entire day.
This is so cool because oftentimes people don't even know where to start. So for you to have given them such a beautiful spot using your professional expertise and your personal story to drive this, I just couldn't love this more. So what you just shared is you would go in and select what feels appropriate to you. Then is there anything you would do to say, like, let me road test this, and let me challenge this? Like, is there anything there that you would mention for our audience?
I am the ultimate tester. I believe we don't know what this is like until you try it on. They're all just jackets. Does this jacket fit? Does this feel like how I want to show up to the world? Is this how I want to see people? And if it is, how would I react in these different situations? There were things that I really fell in love with on the list. But a rebel sounds great to me. It sounds wonderful to me. I would want to show up to the world that way, but would I? I don't think so. There's some piece of incongruence here. So I take it, I narrow it down, I try it on, I see what would this person do? How would they react in this situation? How would they handle stress? Someone, let's say Comcast, decides to shut off their service, or there's a problem on a bill. How would they answer the phone call? How would they go handle that, right? What are those little minor stressor situations that you want to show up for? And how would you do that? And that really helps to identify that personality. And this changes. So it changes in your first year post-cancer. Your second to like fifth year is really different.
Yeah.
But it's something that continually will evolve. And you can come back to this book. It gives you just words to play with and see what really inspires you and what resonates.
I love that idea of pick your cancer anniversary, your cancerversary, and choose this as an exercise that every year you would sit down and say, do these words still define me? Is there another word that I'm going to bring in for this year? Am I going to channel something for this year? And maybe even add a vision board to this of what does someone who has these characteristics go and do? What are their activities? How would I behave? So I love this idea of really operationalizing this so that you can understand how to define it. And Rachel, I'm guessing if I were you, you would say, go and talk to someone and be that person and explain it and see how it feels rolling off your tongue.
I love role playing. I love seeing, okay, let me test on this new persona. Let's see, does this fit better? Does it make sense? And can I live this way authentically?
Yeah. What a gift. Well, be not afraid for everyone. We will have a link to this website so that you can download your own copy of this as part of our podcast notes. And everywhere we post this, we will make sure you have access to this wonderful tool. And hopefully, Rachel, you'll be okay if we link to it from our socials and a website as well, because I think this is a tool we really want to help people understand how they can really be their own champion and define who they are in a post-cancer world, because I don't want to be cancer girl the rest of my life.
I never wanted to be in the first place.
That's the truth. That's the truth. This was not an identity I chose.
No. And
Yeah.
it just happened. And then we have to embrace it and we're forced to. And
Yeah.
it's so weird.
Yeah. In every way. So, all right, Rachel, what else from a marketing expertise would you say? Okay, think about this, or this is something really important for you to know.
I think the best part about this is we are evolving. We evolve throughout our entire lives multiple times. You can always take that moment to reinvent how you see yourself. You don't have to be a victim. You don't have to be an X, a Y, or a Z. We can always put the right words around that, and that will shift your energy to be able to show up the way that you want to in the world.
I'm just looking at this list of words, and I'm thinking about the application, and it is so perfect in a post-cancer world, but it's not just post-cancer. These would easily apply in post-divorce or in a post-breakup, or I'm in a stage where I need to redefine who I am and I have a blank slate. These are the types of words that you should use. And now that you're saying this, I'm laughing because I actually went through this exercise with a branding expert, and I had the opportunity to choose who I was, and he did it. I didn't realize that's what we were doing at a lunch, but this is what we were doing at lunch. And it was with someone that I know and love and deeply love, that was like, who do you think you are? And what is this? So now that you're doing this, I'm like, that's exactly what I did. And after that lunch, I was like, I feel so much better, I love it.
I went through an exercise with job activities that I wanted to do. And I'm not great with instructions. So I wasn't paying attention to what we were doing. They said, just circle any words on there that really stand out to you. And unfortunately, the only word that I saw on there that stood out to me was fire. I didn't realize that it meant fire people. I just thought it meant show up as fire to work, and that's who I am. And yeah, I failed that one. So you don't have to follow instructions. You can play this game any way that you want. Just go download and look at the words and see what resonates. Try them on. Have some fun with it.
I love it. Luminary, lifesaver, legend, leader, inventor, inspirer, innovator. Like, I love these words, humanitarian, as just ideals of who we want to be. So I think what you just learned is Rachel's going to teach you how to define yourself. My industrial psychologist is going to teach you the behaviors you're going to use to define yourself. The answer is not one. The answer is both. To make sure you understand who you want to be and what your objectives are. I want to be a sage, or I want to be a regulator, or I want to be a realist. And how do I become a regulator? Well, I do that by being a data G and by tracking my information and making sure people are doing the right things that they're doing and making sure my doctors are listening. And so it would be very cool to take this list and then think about, like, how do I behave if I want to be a seeker? What are the activities a seeker actually behaves with? And what are how would I define that and operationalize that and bring that into my everyday life? So I would encourage you to take all of the things you've learned on today's podcast and think about each of these. So sit down with a blank piece of paper, take this list that Rachel's created and start to define your list. Start to think about the list I gave you, and I'll go through the 10 really quickly so that you have these top of mind right here. It's maximize joy, minimize risk, be a good person, be worth knowing, know your worth, do no harm, take no shit, live in gratitude, believe, knowledge is power, energy is everything, and everything is energy. And so those are my 10. So think about these different lists we've given you, taking the best of who we are to help you in this transition. I have talked to dozens of people who are going through this moment, and all of them have a smile on their face until I say, how are you? And they'll say, I'm great, I'm cancer-free, I'm da-da-da-da. And then I'll say, no, I didn't ask that as a normal person. I asked that as a cancer survivor or warrior. How are you? And every single one of them has had tears running out of their eyes. And they're like, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know how to behave. I don't know how to talk to my kids anymore. I don't know how to show up at work anymore. And so when you really dig into people who are coming out of their cancer battle or journey, warrior, all these things, no, this is not abnormal. You having to redefine yourself is exactly what needs to happen. And we hope you use what we've shared with you today to help you in this process. Rachel, what other knowledge bombs would you drop on our audience?
I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is this is just a journey. You have survived 100% of your worst days. You will get through this and you will keep kicking ass and moving forward.
That's exactly right. This is just one more obstacle to overcome. This obstacle, though, is how you redefine yourself. So just keep going and
Just
use
keep
your
going.
resources, you know?
And quite frankly, the minute that you start to get down, there are so many things that you can do to immediately pick you up. And that list is a great place to start. And finding that gratitude to start, figuring out who you are again to start. What do you do and how do you do it? Define your own rules.
For sure. Oh, I'm going to sit down with this list tonight. I'm telling you that right now. I mean, this is my next activity, Rachel. I got to sit down and read and make sure that the words I've used to define myself are actually the words I want to use in the future, you know? So,
Completely agree. I can't wait to hear what you end up with.
oh, you know, you'll get a text message from me. So, oh, well, for all of our listeners, we hope that you've come and learned something today that'll help you in your battle. Our journey is our journey and no one else is alone. So please don't forget that you are the champion of your journey. And the way you use your time and energy will dictate your experience, your suffering, and your long-term overall survival and your quality of life. So invest now in ensuring that the way you are using your time and energy gives you the greatest outcome possible, because it all is in your power and the power to heal is absolutely within you. Rachel, I can't thank you enough for joining me today. You have shared so much information. This document will help thousands of people out there figure out how they can support a post-cancer world in such a beautiful way that I just can't thank you enough. I'm grateful today for you.
Oh, thank you, my dear. I'm so grateful you had me.
Yes. For all of our listeners, we hope you enjoyed these knowledge bombs and may you live long and lucky. Thanks so much for listening to Mojo Rising, How to Make Cancer Suck Less.